So I'm going to touch on just a few things. One, we've lost close to 2 million jobs this year alone. This year alone. We have not seen this type of economic downturn in at least 30 years. At least 30 years. Economic activity has come to almost a grinding halt. You find retailers trying to offer all sorts of incentives for you to buy because things have come screechingly to a halt. At the same time, the financial industry is still reluctant to lend because it's unclear how bad the debt and the deficits in some of these financial institutions are. Even after the Congress put forward a package for relief for the crisis, economic crisis of $700 billion, of which almost half has been allocated by the administration, we still find that a lot of the lending isn't occurring. More importantly, the main purpose of the money, of the what people call the bailout money, what I will call economic recovery money, which was to help preclude any further foreclosures of homes so that people were losing their homes, has really not occurred. And so with almost half of the money gone, we have yet to see a real diminishing of the foreclosure rates that we have seen over the last several months, to the point where we are told that about 1 in every 10 Americans right now is having some difficulty or is on the verge of or has lost his or her home. Those are numbers that are astronomical, because it doesn't just imply that 1 in 10 Americans may at some point, if things don't get better, lose his or her home. It means that those financial institutions that lent the money are in jeopardy, which means that all those people who were investing in that financial institution have concerns about investing any more in that institution, which means people are putting their money in their pocket or under their mattress, and therefore they're not earning interest. And if they're not earning interest, then that means that the banks don't have the money so they can earn interest, and it just goes on and on and on. And so that's the difficulty we have. Then on top of that, pile on the fact that GM, Ford, and Chrysler are about to go under. Ford, maybe not as quickly, but if things don't turn quickly in the next several months, Ford also could be in line to file bankruptcy. GM has said we won't make it to the end of the year unless there's some assistance, some bridge money that we can have to cover. You've probably heard on the news they've closed temporarily several plants. They're not selling a lot of cars. The dealers, I've heard from many auto dealers in the area, they're saying we run on a credit system. We offer credit to our clients who want to buy a car, and we get credit from the banks so we can keep this massive inventory of cars on our lots. We don't have a whole lot of cash. A lot of these dealers are going under because they're not selling cars, they're not getting credit, and they've got this massive inventory, and they're stuck. And so we've had several conversations with the Detroit auto companies on what to do. On the House side, this week we came up with a bill that said we won't give you the $34 billion you said you need. We'll give you about $14 billion, but we're not going to give it to you. It will be a loan. There will be several conditions on the loan. One, you have to put limits on what you pay your executives. We can't hear about these $5 million bonuses, and so no bonuses for any executives earning over $200,000. They had to have a detailed plan of how they were going to not just get themselves out of this rut for the next few months, but how they were going to long-term commence a process of building cars that Americans wanted to buy. Now, there's some subjectivity in that. How do I know what you want to buy? Well, conclusion we're reaching because of all the cars that are on the lot is that Americans today want to buy more fuel-efficient vehicles that are prepared to deal with the costs of owning and driving a vehicle in this country into the future. And so we said to them that in this package where they would get $14 billion to use as a bridge loan, they have to repay it. By January 31st, they had to have presented a longer-term plan. They presented a plan to get them through. But we said, if you want to be able to keep the money, you have to present a longer-term plan that shows how you're going to remain viable into the future. If you don't do that, the money comes back. So the money is secured. The companies are still worth something. And we weren't intending to let them keep the money unless they either showed that they were on the path to solvency or we got it back. On the Senate side, the Senate's always a little bit more difficult because of the way they function. They could not get a supermajority vote. They had enough for a majority vote to pass the same bill, but they couldn't get a supermajority vote of 60 out of 100 senators to pass the same bill. And so they tried to change a slightly different bill. That bill had a difference that I objected to a great deal because it would have called for a further cut in the pay of the auto workers who were already going to sacrifice with the executives, with the lenders, with the bondholders as well. And it would have led to the abrogation of the agreements that the companies have with their labor unions, and would have, in essence, as you see in any kind of bankruptcy, it would have nullified those contracts. Now, there's been a big issue there of contention, and we could talk more about it, but I'll just give you a nugget of it from my perspective, so you see what my thinking is. You've heard in the news how some people are saying, well, those auto workers are making $70 an hour, and they should be, okay, by the way, here's my admonition. I love when you guys like what I say and you want to applaud. I'm a little distressed when you don't like what I say and you want to hiss or boo or whatever else. So let's agree that we'll stay neutral, and that way we can just have conversation, okay? No applause, no booing, and we have more time to talk. So let me continue. So you hear that auto workers are making $70 an hour. That's not true. Auto workers are making a pretty decent salary for most Americans. They're making about $50 to $55 an hour. Now, I'll tell you right now, I make a lot more than $50 or $55 an hour at your expense. You're the taxpayer. You pay me. I make $165,000. I'm making about a half or a third of what I could make if I were exercising my profession as an attorney. And I'm making a lot less than all those executives at GM, Ford, and Chrysler are making today, even if they're taking no bonuses. And so those auto workers who are making about 60 grand a year then work overtime to make more. And if you put on top of that their benefits, because they have fought for decades, they've given up salary to get health care and pension benefits. If you add up their hourly wage of $50 to $55 an hour, and you put on top of that the cost of what all their benefits, health, dental, pension benefits are, it's about $12 to $15 an hour. You see how you get up to about the $60, $65 amount. Some say 70, 75. But that figure that you hear quoted, $70 an hour, is imputing all the company's costs on the worker, including those parties that those executives were having, that those workers never got to participate in, including all those bonuses that were being sent out. That has nothing to do with the workers. And so the reality is, like you and me, they fought very hard to get their wages. And what the Senate Republicans wanted to do was to have the contract which guaranteed their salaries abrogated, at which point they wanted them to take a cut and get pay similar to the pay that the auto workers in the foreign motor companies who are building in America were getting in the South, like Toyota, Honda. Their average salary, their wage, is about $10 less an hour. Instead of about $50, $55 an hour, they make about $40, $45 an hour. They're non-union. They don't have union wages. They also have benefits. Their benefits aren't as good. So they have to pay more for their health care. They have to pay more for their dental care. Their retirement benefits are not as good. They're more based on 401ks than a fixed pension where you're... I think Toyota and Honda heard me talking about them in there. And so, yeah, no one go anywhere. So Toyota's costs, labor costs, Honda's labor costs in America are lower. That's because they give their employees less. By the way, they also pay their execs less, but I don't hear GM, Ford, and Chrysler saying that their execs should be paid the same as Toyota's execs are being paid. I just don't believe that the way we want to do this is with a race to the bottom.